I spent 3 weeks in Mexico between two cities and tracked everything. Curious to find out how much I spent? Keep watching. If you're new here and just joining the series, I would suggest going all the way back to episode 1 to get an idea of what's going on. In the previous video, we visited the park that comes alive at night. Now that we've explored a couple hotspots in Mexico, let's see how much I've spent in the 3 weeks I've been here. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yarani. For those who are new here, what's going on? I'm so sorry for breaking the old series. I hope you're enjoying it so far. Just want to give you an update. Today we're going to talk about the moolah. I'm going to talk about how much I spent during the time I was in Mexico. I am currently in, I don't know if you noticed the background has changed. I am currently in Colombia and I'm going to go outside and show you a bit about the place and how it looks and all that stuff. Technically this is country number 10 because I've been here before. But I'm in country number 10 to work on my way to get to country number 21. In order to get to country number 21, I had to go through country number 20. Long story. You will hear more about it. This is country number 10 and the country 21 is right beside it. That's a hint. So stay tuned. You hear more about that. We're going to talk about the moolah, we're going to talk about Mexico. That was country number 3 and I'm going to tell you exactly how much I spent. The video series that you've seen, that was in 2021 when I traveled and I left in 2022. So I spent Christmas there and I spent the New Year's and all that stuff during that time. And it was also during COVID. I just want to give you some context so you can understand why my one-way ticket was so expensive. Alright, so before I did anything, the first thing I focused on was booking my plane fare. This applies to every country that you're planning to go or I'm planning to go. That's how I normally go about it. There are two things that are always going to change when you are looking to travel. And I mean change drastically within hours. So you have to be on these two things. We're talking about accommodation and the plane fare. So those two things I had to ensure that I locked in from the get-go. The minute I'm saying I'm going to a country, I gotta check the prices in Incognito, of course, and I'll explain why. You have to check in Incognito because you might be tracked. And the next time you come back to it, the flights might be different. Okay, so I made sure I locked in the flights and I locked in the accommodation. Now the first one I purchased was the flight from Mexico to Mexico City. And as you know, I was coming from Jamaica, and then I went to Miami and then Atlanta, and then from Atlanta to Monterrey to Mexico City. My flight price was a little bit more expensive, mainly because of I won't say it's the time, because I booked it a month before. It was Christmas, and as I say, it was Christmas, it was COVID. The odds were just not in my favor. And that was a one-way ticket, and I will grab it for you to tell you exactly how much it cost me. It pained me, it really pained my heart, because 3 years prior, I did a round trip from New York to Mexico, and it only cost me $200 and something. So this is due to context. My plane fare from Atlanta to Mexico City was $685.33. One way, yeah. Pain in every language. You hear me tell you? But that was one of the biggest costs for Mexico, really. That particular leg. And that was to Mexico City. Now, I spent a week in Mexico City. And the second thing I normally focus on is the accommodation. So after I locked in the accommodation for Mexico City, because it was like in order, I didn't want to book too far because it was COVID, and I was saying that if I got sick during that time, it would be a problem and I'd have to cancel stuff and all of that things. So I just did a country ahead at the time when I was doing that. So after I locked in the ticket, I then focused on the flight for the Mexico to Cancun, because I was planning to go to Cancun. I'd already been to Mexico City and I wanted to visit Cancun. Cancun was also closer to Belize, which when I was doing my research, I figured that I could easily transfer from Cancun to Belize. So that was my route that I was going to take. And I also wanted to see the pyramid. That was actually the only thing I wanted to see in Mexico, the pyramids. For real. I already see the pyramids on the Mexico City side or near to Mexico City, so I wanted to see the big one in Cancun, and therefore that's why I went to Chichén Itzá. The flight from Mexico City to Cancun was $243.14. When I tell you I track everything, I track every single thing. Yeah. So $243.17. You tracking everything, you realize it's like we're up like almost $900 already. You know what I'm saying? But you're gonna see how much the total is crazy. Locked in those two things, because you know flights change all the time. So I locked those two things in. The next thing was gonna be the accommodation. No, it is so crazy because I was thinking about what's the best approach to choose accommodation. I know I want it to be relatively cheap, but also have great Wi-Fi, comfortable bed, and all that stuff. So I was really trying to figure out how I was gonna find accommodation and do it as on a prolonged basis. And for some strange reason, I pulled up at the time I don't even know if Clubhouse is still going on. I pulled up Clubhouse and I was in some room. And this lady that said she said she was in Costa Rica at the time, and she mentioned a hostel, like a chain hostel, where it's the same brand, same concept, whatever. Their focus is on digital nomads and remote workers, and they are located in multiple cities at the time. She mentioned the name, said the name was Selina. I'm like, bet. I go check it out. I was like, whoa. They got 100 locations, multiple different countries, and all the countries that I wanted to go, they were down there in the path. Like Mexico, they didn't have Belize, they didn't have El Salvador or Honduras, but for the most part they had everything all the way down to South America. And I'm like, yes. So I'm there checking the flights, checking the thing, and I came across Mexico City, and they had Cancun as well. And I'm like, okay, bet. So Selina is who we're gonna use. I went in there and I chose Selina, and I said, okay, this is gonna be our accommodation for the next couple of countries. I knew it could get me all the way down to Argentina, well, Brazil. That's how much I was planning ahead. Okay, so in Mexico City, I was there for a week, and I paid Selina $214.99. And as I said, it's a hostel. But the good thing is, I think I was one of, even though it was like 6 people there, I was the only person in the room for most of the time. Yeah, and it was pretty common in other countries too, but in this particular destination, that particular city, I was pretty much by myself for most of the time. I spent Christmas there and all that stuff. So I was there for a week, $214.99. And then I secured the next accommodation, which would be for Cancun, and that was 200 and, hold on, there was 2 of them. So one I initially had planned to spend 1 week there. And then I really liked it so much, I said, okay, let me do another week. So I ended up spending 2 weeks in Cancun before moving on. And to be honest, I really didn't want to leave there. I enjoyed it so much, but I knew I had all these other countries to go to. So I said, okay, bet. The first week I spent $208.24. That's for a week. And it was about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That room had about 6 of us in there. But it wasn't always 6 people in there. Also, that room, we called the police in there. I'm sorry. And that I'll tell you another time. But I was about to, listen, bust down in there. I just knew that. Listen, I didn't want anything on my record, but it was about to get intense in there. We had to call the police. Some crazy people are crazy. And then the second week, I spent, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was because of after the excitement and all. But I spent $165.60 for the accommodation. Right. We're gonna give a total on the screen so you can see all of that stuff and how much it cost and But yeah. So I secured those first, the plane fare and accommodation. And to be honest, everywhere you're going and you're planning a trip, those two big things are gonna be some of your biggest, if not the biggest, costs of the trip, right? The flight to get there and the accommodation. Once you figure those two things out, everything else is pretty much up in the air, right? You can like figure it out along the way. So I knocked those two in, and then when I finally got to the airport in Mexico City, because of my previous knowledge and making sure that my data was secured on my phone and all that stuff, I knew Uber was already in operation there, and therefore I booked an Uber. I came in around after 12 and booked an Uber, and the Uber dropped me right to the Selina in Mexico City. Now, when I'm choosing my accommodation, one of the biggest things for me for accommodation, and the reason why I chose the Selina brand, unfortunately they're no longer in operation, name change, and the name change, the owner now owns the property I'm in right now, which was once a Selina. So now I'll tell you this another time. But the reason why I chose those particular that particular brand was because they were strategic, or at least they were thinking the way how I was thinking, to make sure that all the accommodations or the places or the locations that they were choosing were very centrally located. Therefore, when the Uber dropped me off at the accommodation or the hostel, I didn't have to do any transportation after that. Everything was in close proximity. I literally could walk to everything I wanted to go to. So my transportation cost was almost non-existent. The only two costs I paid for transportation was from the airport to the hostel, which is Uber, and then from the hostel to Uber to the airport back to go to Cancun. That's it. The first Uber, which I came after 12 in the night, was $11.61. That is from the airport to the hostel, and then from the hostel back to the airport on the day I went in the morning. I think it was like a Sunday or something, and that cost me $3.52. Okay, my total there was like $15.13. Crazy. Okay, so the only thing I had to really worry about was food and transportation once I got on the ground. And you would see me go to the supermarket and do Uber Eats and all that stuff while I was in Mexico City. And a total for my food, it cost me $98.77. And this is a combination of breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and all that jazz. And I ate real good that week. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so that was it for Mexico City. Now we're gonna move on over to Cancun. So once I went back to the airport, and then from Mexico City to Cancun, as I said, flight was already booked, accommodation was already booked. So when I got there, I was doing some research before, and I found out that there was a bus that would take me from the airport directly to downtown, which was in close proximity of my accommodation. And as I said, the Selinas were very strategic to make sure that they were in the locations that were close to everything. I actually knew the bus company name, so when I got to Cancun airport, I just went to the tourist information section and I just said, hey, where do I find the Ado bus? Because because that was the name of the company. I said, "Donde está el autobus?" or something like that. And they directed me where to, so I didn't have to worry about all those taxis and all that stuff, right? So the cost for that was autobus. It literally cost me $5. I'm not even joking. It was $5 on the dot, USD, of course, for the trip. And when I got downtown, I literally walked like 5 minutes, walked across the road, and then I stayed at this restaurant that was nearby. And after I finished eating, I went to the accommodation, which was walking distance. So I didn't have to spend any money apart from that $5 on transportation. Once I got to the hostel, everything was in close proximity. I didn't have to do nothing. Supermarket was nearby, the lavanderia was nearby, or the laundromat was nearby. Didn't have to worry about all of that. So with that said, my transportation cost was almost non-existent. But I'm going to tell you how much my transportation cost was in total. So I met a friend while I was there. I didn't have anything on record to try to see her. I wasn't recording anything. I don't know why. She was living in the US. I think it was in Texas. She was living in Texas, but she was born in Mexico. So she knew the language. She was very familiar with the place and all that stuff. So she told me about the local bus. And it's called the R1 bus. For a trip from the downtown where I was at to the hotel district where all the excitement was, that was less than $1. It was $0.62 to be I don't have the Mexican conversion to it, but it was $0.62. And I made about multiple trips because one, we went to the beach to exercise and all that stuff, and it showed me, it looked amazing. And I'm so sorry I don't have any footage of that. I couldn't get to I just didn't have the time to go to the beach, or I didn't make the time, let's say that. But beach was gorgeous. It's literally like a combination of Miami and Vegas combined. The beach side looked like Miami Beach, and then on the road looked like Vegas, because everything was in close proximity and all the bars and restaurants and all that stuff. And we didn't spend money there when we went there. Just went on to see what was going on, did the celebration, and then took the bus come back. And then after that, I mean, that was it for my transportation. And as you know, when I was going back to the airport from my hostel, I just walked across, paid for the autobus back to the airport, and this time it actually cost me $4.98. I don't know how, being the same destination, I'm not sure how it cost me less, but it cost me less, okay? And I went directly to the airport, back to the airport, $5. Well, $4.98. This part you haven't seen yet. You haven't seen this part yet, but I'm gonna tell you. So I had to take a taxi from the airport, wherever the other bus dropped me off at the airport. The flight to Belize was in a whole different section of the airport in Cancun. Way different, I guess, where the private planes and all this stuff at. And I had to take a taxi from one terminal to the other, and that cost me $20.33. So my total for transportation was $33.41 total for the 2 weeks that I was there. And I made multiple trips on that bus from the downtown area to the hotel district in Cancun. I wasn't staying in hotel district in Cancun. And then for food, as you saw me go to the supermarket multiple trips. You saw me went to restaurants, and also you saw me buying street food and all that stuff. Yeah, all of that came up to, mark you, this was 2 weeks. 2 weeks. All of this came up to $104. How? Because I cooked. Remember I told you that I was comparing how much it would cost me to eat out and not cook at all for an entire week versus cooking. and just comparing the two to see what was more expensive or what was more cost effective. And I found out that cooking was the answer. Even though I had some stuff that was left over, it was way cheaper, because the previous week when I spent in Mexico City for 1 week, it was $98. And for 2 weeks in Cancun for food, I spent $104. And baby, I did not starve myself. I really ate. And you can see, is the supermarket, you can see all the ground provisions and all the stuff that I bought. I really cooked and I enjoyed myself. And I also ate healthy for the most part, because I love sweet things. So I had that on my budget there. But in total, it was $104. I don't have everything logged for Mexican pesos in here, so I can't tell you the exact price. But everything here cost me $104. In terms of miscellaneous, as I said, you know, like this, I did tours, and I also went to the laundry to do my laundry. I made two trips to the laundromat. And the laundry cost me, damn, I thought it was more expensive than that. I actually was complaining, saying it was too expensive, but it's not bad. My laundry was $4.62. Why did I think it was more expensive than that? And I paid for a COVID test. I'm not sure if you've seen that yet. I don't know if you've seen that part yet. I think you have. Like, you just saw it, right? Oh yeah, you have. So, yeah, I paid for a COVID test. My COVID test was $25 with the card charge. It was $25.41. And of course, I went to the tour. As I said, the tour took me to the pyramids, to Mayan cenote, to the Mayan town, and to the Mayan community village, or whatever that stuff was. And the total of that was, it was actually $60, but I think with the charge of my card, the total was $60.84. That was the total for that. We're talking about miscellaneous stuff. Also, I also tracked that I bought a bag, a grocery bag in the supermarket. I tracked that too. That was $0.71. But I tell you, I track everything. Everything get tracked. I put everything on it as miscellaneous, and my total for that was $68.96. Let me tell you how much I spent in total for Mexico City and for Cancun, and then I'm gonna give you a combined price for the entire Mexico. Ready? Let's go. So my total for Mexico City, let me tell you. So let's talk about, and I'm under the weather right now, so bear with me. $1,044.22. $1,044.22 for Mexico City. Mark you, the flight was $600 and something. So you know everything else is like under that price, right? And then my cost for Cancun, even though I spent 2 weeks there, my cost for Cancun was $800. I hope, let me check this right, because this can't be right? Everything is tracked, babe. Everything is there. Every single thing is there, including the bag that I paid for. My total cost for Cancun was $848.76. Crazy, right? So I'm gonna give you my total now. Let me get this track real quick. Where's my calculator at? 22 cents plus 848. Beep. So my total was $1,892.98. And that's how you do it. I'm gonna try to show it on the screen here so you can see the difference between how much I spent in Mexico versus how much I spent in Cancun, or Cancun and Mexico, whichever one. Hopefully I have enough space on the screen so you can see everything. If I had gone home and come back, you could see how the prices would have been way higher just because of where your destination is coming from. But because of the way how I did it, where I was just moving from one country to the next, it made it way cheaper. It's almost like it literally got less and less expensive because I was already over there. That's how I prefer to travel, and it's cheaper that way, honestly. I hit multiple stops along the way, so it's cost friendly, because girlfriend live on an island and the island be expensive to come off of. Okay, so I was strategic with that, and I ensured that I was able to freely move from that part to that part. And then you can see how easily it was. I literally drew a map of, and then draw a map. I pull up the map and I say, okay, let's do this, then do this, then do this, then do this, and do this, because it's gonna be cheaper. And that's the exact way I did to get to South America, how I ended up over Belize. So that's how there you have it. The one thing that's missing from this list though is travel insurance, which I highly recommend. Travel insurance, I cannot stress this enough, because I've seen some crazy things, girl. I've seen some crazy things on that trip. Listen, God himself was protecting me on that flight, because in Mexico, I didn't have travel insurance, because when I had spoken to my insurance company in Jamaica, they were saying, no, we don't offer that kind of service. So I was still trying to figure out who I could go with. The only company I knew was World Nomads, I think. And there was something why I didn't choose them. I don't remember. Like they weren't matching or aligning with the goals I had or how I wanted to travel. So I just say, you know what, let me go figure it out. And I'm so happy that by the time I got to El Salvador, I met some travelers who were coming from the opposite direction, and it's like, hey, have you tried SafetyWing? I'm like, what? Yes, please. It is so easy to work with, and then you just put in whether you want to be monthly if you're traveling, if you're a remote traveler, and you're doing monthly, or remote worker, I should say, doing monthly, or if you just want to do for a period, we're going to a particular country. List all the countries you're going to, and they would give you like a official card, whatever, insurance card or whatever, so you can use it when you're going into the country. Because at the time, some countries require you to have travel insurance just to protect yourself when you're there. So that company was covering a lot of things, and I came across them. So if you want to learn more about them, they're in the link below, and I can freely share more information about it. That's what I used for the duration of my trip. I was there from Central America all the way down to South America. And going forward, I'll be using them because they're so convenient to me. There are some countries that they don't cover. For example, they don't cover Venezuela and Haiti, I think Ukraine, and another like heated one, I think maybe like Russia. So just better if you're trying to go to those countries. But for the most part, they cover a lot of countries. So I'll just list all the countries I was planning to go to, and I would just pay a monthly fee. And at the time, I think it was $40 something. You can check, but I was paying that for the month. But if you are doing just for a couple of days or whatever, you can just plug it in there and tweak it, and it can tell you how much it's going to be for your trip. And of course, if you purchase insurance through me, I am an ambassador or an affiliate, and therefore I will get a commission from it. So I just want to be transparent about that. That's it. That's the only thing that was missing, but I had a great time in Mexico, and I hope you are enjoying the series so far to see what's going on. Listen, I have a lot more to come. Stay tuned. But as I said, this is all the stuff I've had in terms of how much I spent in Mexico. I didn't want to go through how to get to Mexico because I've already done that video, and for those who haven't seen it yet, I'm going to put it over here or over here, depending on how I'm angled in this frame, and you could take a look at that to see how to get to Mexico. And if you get stuck, feel free to check the link below to reach out to me on my socials, my travel agency and all that stuff, and I will be happy to help you to get to your destination. If you're trying to do Mexico as well, if you're trying to do it the way how I did it, feel free to reach out. So there you have it, guys. What is next? What you're gonna see is me leaving from Cancun to go to Belize, country number 4. Stay tuned, guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the series. We got a lot in store for you guys because we got a couple more countries to knock off for this season, and then we will go to the other season. So, ciao!